Fulke, Rapid UI prototyping. Grazie. Thank you.
So I want to start by saying that I have a colleague, Jürgen, who was supposed to be here. That's why his name is here. He has been working a lot on Rapid UI prototyping with QML and how to work closer with designers with QML to close the gap between engineering and designing. We both work at a company called Latticore. We work within automotive primarily, so our life mission is to put stunning user experiences on the road. And we do that using QML and an open source Linux stack. So we're going to talk a bit about prototyping in general. Then we're going to have a look at how to prototype with QML. We're also going to have a look at a demo around this and some of the tooling around it. Some of you saw my previous talk and I talked about a tool called QML Live. I will try to show it here. It's not the best tool on this screen resolution, but we will see what we can squeeze in. So prototyping in general is really about letting the users and the designers try the design before we're ready. We don't write a written spec of what we want. We sort of play with it until we have something that works nice. We can test different concepts. We can see which models that work. And what we want to promote is the building of a structured prototype, a prototype that can evolve into the final product. The reason for calling it a prototype is that we want to admit that usually when designing a brand new user interface, you don't really know all the facts that you need to know for a good job. The best way is to iterate over the design in a structured manner that leads you forward towards the product. And this is where QML comes in. In automotive industry, prototyping has usually been done in other tools. So, for instance, Flash. So the designers work in one tool chain, create the full user experience, and then hand it over to development that re-implements everything in a slightly different tool set, ending up with a mishmash of good and bad. So, looking at the theory, we have a set of values. Basically, starting at the bottom, we need a strategy, what we want to do, what's the business benefits, what is it that we want to provide to the users. And moving from there, we set a scope for our product, what solutions do we want to provide, what do we want to solve, before we get into a structure, how do we present this solution to the user. Then we move forward to skeleton, where we actually can put together something that we can start playing with before we finally add the surface. And looking at what we do in QML, we start with the structure and skeleton with wireframes basically. So a UI that basically represents everything with boxes. But it's enough to start trying the interaction. Can we fit all the information onto the screen? Does it lay out in a structured way? Or does the interface scale in the right direction? Are we having really long list items, or do we have a really long list in which direction we want the UI to grow? We then add surface through graphics, and we finally add motion to provide the modern device user interface that is expected by an end user. And the tool for that is the prototype that we built in QML. So usually when we work around this, we set out the structure as a tree here. So we basically lay out the parts of the UI that we know, and we refine this tree as we go down the branches. So we might have a situation where we know this top level, and we start working with movies and music, while in settings we don't know that much. And then we can start refining these screens one by one, and we can use a structure like this to track the projects. We can say that in these areas we're working wireframes, where we're sort of exploring what we need on the screen and how we can build that on. These are slightly more mature, so here we're starting to add graphics, see if it still works with brand and the layout, while this one has motions and is starting to approach the final look and feel. this leads us to a process that, in my world, this is a very agile way of working, because ideally, this is the process that you have with your UI developers and the interaction design and graphical design, and you're basically always releasing. At any time, you can break this loop and you have your product, but you also use simulation UI while the rest of the project is maturing. But it merges very well into an iterative, agile, one process of thinking about this. And this also gives you a way to prioritize which parts you want to polish more, which parts you want to polish less, and to reprioritize as you explore the use cases and the user behavior. So, looking at this from QML, this is the usual project setup that we have. We of course have a set of requirements. Well, what are we supposed to do? Acceptance tests. How do we know that we actually did what we were supposed to do? And then we have a dependency chain. We have a UI specification that outlines what we have to achieve with the UI, that leads us to implementing a front end, which depends on the back end, which depends on the OS and the services lying within the OS. And this sort of ties into the different stages that we spoke of last time. So here we're going wireframe, becoming more and more concrete until we actually have an actual back-end implementation. So this sort of ties into that setup. And going even further towards Qt, then this is usually what we end up with. In most projects, we end up developing a set of controls. It depends on what you're targeting. If you're, for instance, targeting Android, then you have a set of controls. But if you're targeting a completely new device, so for instance, automotive, you will have to have a set of controls for your specific brand, for that vehicle to look and feel great. Then we use these controls to build applications view and the system UI that pulls it all together. I'm not sure how many of you were at the last seminar when we touched Application Manager. This sort of ties into the way we build systems anyway. Let's put it that way. So these views come from basically apps. This puts the product together. All of this relies on a platform API that is provided through QML plugins that makes it accessible from QML, and these depends on the actual services in the OS. But in order to separate this from basically everything else in the project, we usually start with mock controls. We're going to look at this. And that maps well onto wireframes. So it's easy to get started early to show something viewing that allows the designers, or rather the developers or implementers of the design, to join the project much more early. That is common, which we believe is a very good thing because you get more iterations to actually finalize the project. And we also believe in having a stub backend, dummy data basically. And depending on if you only use QML dummy data or if you actually have a mechanism to stub your actual service, it depends a bit on the whole setup, what you're trying to achieve. But really what we're trying to achieve here is fast round-trip interface. We really want to work agile many iterations to get it good. We do that by starting simplified. We don't want to finalize drawn paper specification of the design. We want to start as early as possible. We want to be able to showcase the design before it's properly designed. And this requires things from our tooling. So easy export of assets, so no manual slicing of Photoshop design totally. Easy access to data, and this would tie into the stubbing or dummy data. You need to have something to put into the UI that is actually good. We're going to look at QML Live later on, which allows us to do this. It allows us to very early on start testing it on the right hardware, or as close to the right hardware as we can get. So maybe an evaluation board design usually, so I'm not that used to these tools. But we have a UI wireframing tool called Balsamic that allows us to sketch out ideas early on and we can exchange them forth and back. We have a Photoshop export tool, slicing basically, so we can get the assets out early. This is a really nice vector drawing tool that allows us to create scalable graphics, so you can start. It's not that expensive to produce the PNGs as we go along. We're of course live and breathe to creator. I will do my life. I'm going to show you later on. We like JSON. JSON is very nice, easy to work with. We usually love to sort of stuff backends. It's easy to put read services in there as well later on. And then I'm going to demonstrate some of the QML technologies that we use in this process to actually get the wireframes up and running. And for the demo, we're going to look at something called Pixie, which is available on GitHub in multiple iterations. So basically in 6 different steps, so you can follow the incremental development. This is then a sketch of what we want to do. And unfortunately, it's completely unreadable, I realize now. But what we want to do is a browser of music albums where you can basically zoom in on each individual song. It's not a player as such, it's a very simple example of a two-view application. So now comes experimentation, and I'm going to try to have a seat. Is it possible to use this one? Yes. Can you hear me? Good. So I tried to squeeze all of this in. So basically, this is the Pixie project, which I've just pulled from GitHub. I will provide the link later on. Each of these stages, stage 1, 2, and 3, are available in A and Z editions, basically the start and end of each step, so you can see how it ties together. And this first step is the wireframe. Start here. So basically what we have is a list with a view. And the way that we lay this out, if we look at the main QML, is with these, with markers. And some standard organizers. So if we look at the list page here, you have marker, 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 and so on. And a marker is basically a semi-transparent square where we can put text or icons in it. And again, this is available on GitHub, so it's really easy to start with. And knowing that, looking back here, it's a single element, and you can start to prototype really early, to have an interaction design discussion really early on, to start laying stuff out, to see how it behaves on screen. You can try some basic transitions, and just show how the screen state is partitioned. The next step in this is then to start adding graphics, to start making it look alike. And what we choose here is we still go with dummy data, but it's a lot closer to the final product. So here we have basically an automated or dummy data list with the same item all over. But I'm going to show you some tricks while going over this. We have a set of controls that we've identified. We have the label, the list item, search, and so on, that we developed as a part of this project. And each of these items contains what we call a tracer. Of course, I picked one that does not, because it's a more complex one. So for instance, the label here has a tracer. And the text one here is a tracer with a slightly different color. And a tracer is a really nice, handy little thing we keep in our imports. And now I think you created open the wrong tracer. So let's not go there. Web utilities down here, and here we have a tracer. basically a square that fills its parent. And it's invisible unless we enter debug mode, which we do in a central place in our style definition. So we look in style and set this one to true. And save it before we start. Now I get to know the common QML errors, basically. It's quite common to create a list view that has no width and the graphics layouts, but the touch area is 0. This is a very easy way. You put a tracer in each element that is of interest. Put it in your touch areas, wherever you want something marked. It's really easy to turn it on and off. The debug mode is property, so you can even have like a secret tab or not somewhere to turn it on in your actual system to see why the interaction doesn't work. You can see how big the interaction zones are. And this is something that you can carry basically all the way into production if you like to. You disable it very late. It's a great tool to avoid many of the hazards. And the next step when we have the basic graphics in place is then to start adding data and start adding actual functionality. And in this case we have here, we restart this. So, is it readable? It doesn't say that much. This is a Django setup where it's easy to create basically tables that you can fill with data, and this automatically presents a REST interface that returns JSON data. So using this, I can easily, with only a few hundred lines of code, produce a proper backend that does what the UI expects. So let's see, I've changed the active project, and now all of a sudden you have my local media. I use Spotify, so this was what I found before yesterday evening. But here you have, so basically you have the search functionality. You can go into each item to read, and down here you can see. You can actually see the exchange of JSON data. All this was Kit Creator, which is great when you work locally on a single screen. We had some problems. For instance, I might want this window to open here every time. But every time I change something, it opens there. These little itches made us create a tool that's called QML Live, which is available on GitHub, open source. And this is the same project in QML Live. So it's basically a viewer. I can't fit in the full height, unfortunately. But it works as expected. It has some of the features that you find in QML-C. So for instance, I can slow down the animations to really see what's happening in the transition. I can speed them up again a little bit. I can also export snapshots, basically screenshots, if I want to create use manuals or highlights and things. I have the logs down here, which apparently contains a funny error message that I don't recognize. Then there are some features that are sort of handy. You can reload all the QML plugins, so you can flush that cache if you want to do that. But the main feature of this is that it's a live loader. So if we go to the top here, and now comes the really funny part. That's the wrong window. So if I go in here, and let's find a string that's visible, and change this one, and I save, it automatically reloads on the other side, which is really handy, especially when you have multi-screen set up. industry where from a designer to make a paper spec to actually get to see that on the screen can take up to 6 weeks. We want to change this. We want to work closely with designers when implementing this. We want to be a part really, really early. We want to implement the wireframes. We don't want you to do wireframes in another tool with all the transitions and not have to redo that to sort of reinterpret. And we want to work with this. We want to work structurally with a prototype that actually can turn into a product. And this iterative approach really fits the way we want to develop software, which is agile. So we want to work in iterations throughout the whole project. QML helps us here with the clear separation from the backend, since we can stub off parts. We can start with the UI before the backend is done, which lets the designers start working before the platform is there, so we can compact the timescale of the whole project. And all this lets us talk. We have something, hopefully even running on a target very, very early. We can start discussing the real things very early. We can start feeling things and adjusting that size of an icon or that size of a touch area, which is great. And it's nice to see here. Kit is often one of many options in UI. There are lots of alternatives out there. But I personally believe that QML is one of the few tools that pulls all of this together. It makes it possible to work so much tighter, so much earlier in these projects. And then I'm going to show this for the ones who are interested. The source code I showed you here, fix it. QML live sits here. If you want to run the final stage of Pixie, you need this data provider. That's the Django backend, simply provides immediate data. And then these are the tools that I mentioned earlier on.
Thank you.